Narayana namaskritya narom chaivam narottamam devim saraswati vyasam tato jayam durirayat nashtaprayesu abhadesu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhavatu tamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Hare Krishna. So, this morning is, we are celebrating all around this world in ISKCON temples, Nrsimha Caturdasi, which means the appearance of Lord Nrsimha. So, that's in Canto 7 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 7 is entitled The Science of God. So before we even go into that, I'll just start with the regular prayers. Om Agyanati Virandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunantam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Saavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhuve Eva Chapati Kanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschathyari Sitarine Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gorachite Namaha Anandali Namaya Vigrahaya Vimabhidi Vicha Vishnuraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Hare Krishna. So, we could pull up a verse, but actually the whole pastimes of the appearance of Lord Nrsimha, since it is a pastime, we'll, by your permission, narrate parts of the story, and then I'll pull up some prayers, a couple of prayers, one by Narada Muni, and then the other one by, or lectured by Narada Muni, and the other one prayers by Prahlad Maharaj. That's going to be pulled up on PowerPoint when we get to that point. So I won't share any screen right now. We just relate the story, and then from Canto 7, Chapter 7. So that's entitled What Prahlad Learned in the Womb. So Prahlad's father, as we well know, is Hiranyakashipu. He is a great demon. And Prahlad Maharaj was born to him, but he is a great devotee of the Lord. So it's an interesting situation where a demon gives birth to a devotee. But that has happened a few times in different pastimes, because there is some, of course, connection with that particular personality that has become a demon. Hiranyakashipu actually originally is not a demon. He's from the spiritual world. He's a gatekeeper. He's Jai, he's the gatekeeper. And when he was born, because the Lord wanted to sport by fighting in the material world, so him and his other, in the material world they became brothers, but Vijay became Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. in Satya Yuga. The Lord came and vanquished Hiranyakashipu. Before then he had vanquished Hiranyaksha in his incarnation as Lord Varaha. So those are all background things. But Hiranyakashipu, as many demons are alike, they want power. They want control over wherever they are in the material world. So that's not different in the case of Hiranyakashipu. He also wanted control, and for him he wanted even more than just that. He wanted to be immortal. So he went through austerities, severe austerities, praying to Lord Brahma to grant him his wishes. And when Lord Brahma approached him, he wanted to be, as he told Lord Brahma, immortal. But Lord Brahma says, I myself have a limited time in the material world. I don't stay here forever. I will have to leave the body too. And so if I can't be immortal, I cannot give immortality to anyone. But then Hiranyakashipu thought that he would deal with the situation in a different way and ask for all kinds of boons, including not to be killed by any weapon which Lord Brahma granted, not to be killed by any creation of Lord Brahma himself. Anything he's created, he was granted that, not to be killed in the land or in the sea or in the air. He was granted that, not to be killed by any, animal or human being, because all of that were Lord Brahma's creations. He got all of that. So he thought by his own estimation that to get all those kind of boons, he was going to be immortal, because he thought he had covered all bases. Well, he actually conquered the heavenly planets. He subdued everyone. Usually when these kind of things happen to the demons, the only personalities that are left are Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. Everybody else, including Indra, they were all conquered by Hiranyakashipu. And so their kingdom was taken over by Hiranyakashipu. The demigods, when situations like that happen, they would go to either Lord Brahma, or they would go to Lord Brahma, complain, and Lord Brahma would contact Lord Vishnu on their behalf. Or sometimes they would pray directly to Lord Vishnu. But the final analysis is Lord Vishnu will be contacted. So in this case too, when Hiranyakashipu took over, Lord Vishnu was contacted, and he said to them that Hiranyakashipu will be defeated. He will be conquered soon. He didn't say the demigods would do it. But as from chapter 7 of Canto 7 describes, and Srila Prabhupada gives a summary of it, Hiranyakashipu also left his kingdom, went to the mountain known as Mandarachala to execute severe austerities. Now, when they do that, demons, they always want power, and they go through austerities for that reason. Of course, devotees go through austerities just to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One such example is Kardama Muni, who went through austerities, denied his body so much just to please the Lord. And then, of course, later on he married Swayambhuva Manu's daughter, and then Devahuti, and then Lord Kapila appeared from them. So these are all auspicious things that happen. But demons perform austerities for different reasons, exactly the opposite. So when Hiranyakashipu left his kingdom, then the demigods say, oh, it's time to attack. So they attacked, led by Indra. And they were defeating the demons scattered. And at that time, the demigods, because Hiranyakashipu was not there, his wife was there, his wife Kayadu, he was the queen. Hiranyakashipu was, of course, the king. So Indra took Kayadu, Hiranyakashipu's wife. She was pregnant at that time, and pregnant with Prahlad. So the demigods were thinking that since Kayadu was the wife of a great demon, that the offspring, the child in the womb, would also be a demon. But that's not too surprising. They think demons give birth to demons. A person's consciousness is like that. But of course, this is part of the Lord's plans. So, since the husband wasn't around, the demons had really been defeated and they were all scattered. The demigods took, Indra especially, took Kayadu and they arrested her. And the plan was that as soon as the child was born, they would kill that child. So while they were taking Kayadu to the heavenly planets, in the meantime, Hiranyakashipu was performing austerities. So he wasn't around there to get back at the demigods. So they were taking Kayadu to the heavenly planets. Then Narada Muni, they met him. And he stopped them from taking her away. And rather than take her away, he took Kayadu to his ashram to wait there until Hiranyakashipu's return. So, Narada Muni being who he is, a pure devotee of our Lord, Shaktavesh Avatar, Narada Muni's ashram, Kayadu, prayed for the protection of the baby in the womb, which is natural for a mother. But Narada Muni also reassured her and began to give her instructions on spiritual knowledge. Now, at that time, Prahlad was in the womb of his mother Kayadu, and he was hearing what instructions Narada was giving. So he was a small baby in the womb, but he listened very, very carefully. And so, Narada's teachings to Kayadu were taken very seriously by Kayadu's son. Now, when it came later on for Prahlad Maharaj, when he was born, when he grew up, to be a small boy, he went to school, he knew what Narada had told his mother, and therefore he had heard it too. And he was using that to try to convince his schoolmates. And he had very, very great success in doing that. So Narada's instructions to Prahlad and to Kayadu also in the womb. So now, here are the instructions. The spirit soul, this is Narada teaching Kayadu with Prahlad listening. The spirit soul is always apart from the material body. This is, for devotees who've been around for a while, it's known that, of course, the soul, we say, is in the heart area of every living entity. And it's by itself, it's not material. But even though it's in the body is material, so it's not actually connected to the body. It's just in the heart area, but not connected to any part of the physical body. Not connected. It is still the one that gives consciousness, because it's from the soul, then of course the subtle body, and then the subtle body, the mind, and intelligence is there. The consciousness is pervading the whole physical body, for in our case. Now, it's also a very strong point to make to anybody who is a non-devotee. People know about birth, but you can use what's known now to make a very good case to describe why a person is not the body, but they are the soul. We know that because for us, your Papa told us. But a person that does not know that and doesn't know much about the science of the soul, you can just simply tell them, when a person dies, you know what happens. The body gets buried, or the body gets cremated, or the body gets put in a particular place, or abandoned there. The body gets buried. But we also have heard many times from all kinds of religions, the soul goes somewhere. The soul goes to heaven, the soul goes to hell, the soul goes, many Catholics, they say there's purgatory, all the places, but the soul is going there. So the soul is going, which means the soul is not dead. So life is because of the soul. The soul can go, but we know what happens in the material body. The material body doesn't function. We burn it or we bury it. So if the soul goes somewhere, then that means that the material body was never us, because if we were the material body, that body will be going somewhere too. But it's only the soul that goes. So the real life is actually in the soul. So you can make a case like that. to convince the person that we are actually souls. Because the material body has just a specified period of time and then it doesn't function anymore. And the reason why it begins to function is because the soul is inside of it and it gives consciousness, and the consciousness makes it function like if it was alive. Just like a car, once you start it and you put it in gear, it would do all kinds of things. Move forward, go left, go right, go backwards, stop, like it was active. But it isn't. As soon as you take the power from it, the car is no longer useful. So the soul is always a part of the material body. First instruction given to Kayadu and Prahlad. Also, there is no change in the spiritual form of a living entity. Only the body changes. And we call that growth. And then after a while the body begins to fall apart, and then the body doesn't function anymore. The soul comes out of the body. So the basic things were being explained to Kayadu. He did not know he was the wife of a demon. And this boy was also in her womb. So there is no change in the spiritual form. Our spiritual forms are the same. Right now, the only thing that's happened to us is this spiritual form has been squished into a, for lack of a better way to describe it, into an atomic form. And so when we get the opportunity to go back to the spiritual world, while we live in the spiritual world, then for our way of looking at things, the only way we can say is the soul then expands. It's little now, but it's going to expand into its, what we call the Siddha Swarup, the original form. So there really isn't any change as the body changes. He informed Kayadu about that also. Now, there is transcendental knowledge, but it is received by a person who is understanding that the bodily conception is only at the physical level. That's not us. Therefore, a person that thinks above the bodily conception of life, the mind at least is pure, and that person can receive transcendental knowledge. Now, that's us. By the mercy of the Guru, we have actually begun to understand we're not these bodies, and then we're beginning to receive transcendental knowledge. Now, if we look at it the other way, if we were the bodies, or we think, or we were convinced that we are the bodies, none of this would make sense to us. We won't accept it. We will not accept it. We would do things pertaining to the body and think that's all in all, as many people are doing now, unfortunately. So that means we got our work cut out for us. We will understand that we are not the body, therefore we are above the bodily conception of life. We're not living for the body. We're living to save the soul. But we're using the body now. We're only using it. And so we're trying to keep the body going in order to be able to go through the process of purification. And the transcendental knowledge will mean more to us then and would make us even happier. So that all of that's there. So Narada's instruction is, this transcendental knowledge it culminates in devotion service. We have to serve the Lord from our hearts. Even if we're still not pure and we make mistakes and we have anathas, unwanted desires, still the purity should be in our minds in terms of being determined to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No matter what. Mam chayo abhavicharena bhakti yogena sevati. We serve the Lord whatever the circumstances are. We shouldn't fail. Serve the Lord in unfailing circumstances. That's what a lover would do. A person who loves somebody that wants to help them, if they love them, no matter what the situation is. Some things that normally they would even think twice about it and not want to do, because they're doing it it's for the lover's advantage, they'll do it anyway. There's a song that's called "What You Won't Do, You Will Do for Love." It became quite popular in this country. So in loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to practice how to do that, we make ourselves do even the things that we find a little difficult, find a way around it and get it done. And that way our love will be cemented more. And it'll be more, it'll have more foundation. It will be stronger. And then with that comes the happiness. So the transcendental knowledge is devotional service to the Lord, to the Lord's devotees, and also to the Guru. So every person engaged in the service of the Lord through the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master is immediately liberated. So all devotees, no matter what level they think that they are at, or we think that we are at, as long as we are serving the Lord willingly, not being forced or not doing it grudgingly, as long as we're serving the Lord willingly and following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, we are liberated, at least mentally. Physically, we're still in the material world, but mentally we're liberated. In other words, we're not living for the material world. We're living to go home. We're living to prepare to go back to Godhead in the spiritual world. Therefore, we are mentally out of connection or touch with the material world, and that is liberation. The instructions of the bona fide spiritual master makes that possible. So that also at least gives us freedom mentally from the clutches of Maya, because we see Maya for who she is, what she is doing. In fact, it gets to a point where we begin to have the understanding that Maya is actually helping us to be purer by exposing the things that we need to work on. And also looking at how determined we are. If we fall into the temptation, that means to that extent we are weak. And therefore we have to make arrangements in order to be stronger. And there's a god brother of mine that he used to say, you take one day at a time. Today I will try to live my life without Maya in it. The way to do that actually is to be more regimented. Many of the sannyasis are like that. Their day is planned. This time I do this time I do that, and like that. So we relieve of material desires and ignorance. Once we have that understanding, then we work towards that. We work towards that relief. So, what's the duty? So now that I've explained all of this, the duty of everyone is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And from the shelter, taking the shelter, we become free from material desires. It is not an overnight thing. It happens steadily and slowly, or Papa says gradually, but the purification does in fact come. If you look at it ourselves, 5 years ago, we were having more struggle with our anathas than we are now. And if that's not the case, then there should be alarm bells going on in our head. There should be improvement as time goes on. So, he said, this is Narada telling Kayalu, it does not matter what material condition a person is in. One can get to this perfection, doing devotional service and being cleaned up mentally. It does not matter what condition we're in. In other words, we can even be Chandala, lowest or lowest, and still, once we're convinced that we want to take up this process, then Krishna allows us, Lord Chaitanya's mercy is there, and He allows us to grow to the point of perfection. So, devotional service, bhakti yoga, is not dependent on these material austerities, activities of austerities, penance, mystic yoga, even piety. Devotional service is not dependent on that. Devotional service is a decision that's made in the heart that Krishna is my Lord and I'm surrendered and I'm going to serve Him no matter what. I don't have to go through austerity or penance or mystic yoga or even be pious in order to do that. At any level, regardless of the material condition, we can start devotional service. So, interestingly enough, though, the way Srila Prabhupada has set up what to do and what not to do, some of these that in this line here is actually being practiced to some extent. What do we mean by that? Well, it says devotional service is not dependent on austerity, but the four regulated principles are at this point taken as austerity because the bulk of the people in the world are not going by the four regulated principles. They are meat eaters. They involve themselves in illicit sex. As a matter of fact, that's what they do the most. They think it gives them the greatest sense gratification. And they involve in gambling, they involve meat eating, they involve in intoxication. So to stay away from that is actually the better thing to do. But around us, people are doing it. So it's like to do different is an austere situation for us. Penance, of course, we're trying to get better. Nativity, taking getting rid of the unwanted desires, being better persons, so that we're going through penance. Mystic yoga is not important for us because Krishna will protect us anyway. We just surrender to Krishna and He protects us. That's all the mystic yoga we ever will need. Anything else, trying to control the material nature, trying to control other things here to make impossible things materially happen, it won't help us because it doesn't take us back to the spiritual world. So it's not important. We are pious, definitely. Brahminical have to be. So it's actually involved. This is a devotee's life to be pious anyway. So we not just do devotional service, and these things are taken care of. So a person without even those assets, still, when when he meets a pure devotee, the mercy of the pure devotee can help them. The words of the pure devotee, the actions of the pure devotee, can help them to begin to get involved in devotional service, whatever level they were at. And we know all kinds of people who have come to devotional service. Srila Prabhupada started with hippies. They were involved in heavy intoxication. They were involved in illicit sex. They were involved in meat eating. And some of them probably were gambling too. But definitely meat eating, illicit sex, and intoxication. All of them practically were doing that. The overwhelming majority were doing that. But look at them now. Some of them are even pure devotees up to the point where they're spiritual masters. And making spiritual masters even with the disciples. So, without such assets, still a person can, through the mercy of the pure devotee, become very, very fixed up in devotional service. So, it's the spiritual master that gives this as a blessing. Devotional service itself is a blessing to every devotee. Because a person involving themselves in devotional service will be able to eventually see Krishna as He is. Krishna says, I reveal myself to the person who is involved in devotional service. It is through devotional service that I can be known. He says that in Bhagavad Gita. So when the spiritual master makes it possible for us to turn from wherever we are to begin to do devotional service, then we have been given a huge blessing by the spiritual master. The spiritual master, in the case of Kayadu and Prahlad, was Narada Muni. He was the Shiksha Guru, instructing what to do, what life is like to Kayadu. So that's some of the instructions given by Narada Muni to Kayadu. At the time that Kayadu was at the ashram of Narada Muni, being protected from the very, very, very upset, irate demigods. So now, in chapter 8 of Canto 7, Prahlad is born, he goes to school and starts preaching the instructions that he got from Narada to his schoolmates. And he was so effective that the sons of these demons, who were also his classmates, Prahlad's classmates, they began to follow Prahlad's instructions, and they became attached to Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the attachment became such that the schoolmates of Prahlad were now living or relating to each other according to what Prahlad had taught them, and their teachers, Sanda and Amaka, realized that whatever they were teaching was not getting that much of an effect on these young boys, then they became very much afraid, because they thought that the boys would become more and more devoted to Lord Vishnu and not hear what they had to say according to what Hiranyakashipu, the teachers had to say according to what the Hiranyakashipu had instructed the teachers to train these boys at. They were sons of demons. But they found that they were helpless. Sanda and Amaka found they were helpless. So then he approached Hiranyakashipu and described what was going on, and especially the effect that Prahlad's preaching was having on the classes. So Hiranyakashipu heard this, and he was very angry, to the point that he decided to kill his son Prahlad. Prahlad knew that, and he tried to pacify his father. He fell down at his feet, said many things just to pacify him, but he was unsuccessful. Because when a demon decides that I'm going to end your life, it's very difficult to change their mind unless you describe something to them that's a better deal. Like Vasudeva was able to do to Kansa when he was ready to kill Vasudeva's wife Devaki. But Prahlad in this case was just telling the father it is actually better to surrender to Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu was his enemy, because Lord Vishnu in the form of Varaha had killed Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha. So he, being a demon, was not about to hear anything about Lord Vishnu. So it was a typical demon. And he tried to advertise himself like he was greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as soon as he said that, Prahlad challenged him. And he said that he was saying that he was God, Hiranyakashipu. And Prahlad was saying, Hiranyakashipu, my father, is not God. And then he began to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. And he declared that the Lord is all-pervading. Everything is under him. And that no one is equal to him or greater than him. Ashamodva. As it says in Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1. Srila Prabhupada describes, no one is at the Lord's level or greater than him. Then, when he came to a meeting directly between father and son, the son, Prahlad Maharaj, requested Hiranyakashipu, the father, to be submissive to the omnipotent Supreme Lord. Now, submission is not the thing that demons want to hear. It makes them angry to even hear that, because their program is control. To control, to be submissive is exactly the opposite. To be the boss, that's control. To be the servant, that's to be submissive. And demons are not about being servants. So much so that sometimes they even fight each other to see which one of them is the greater controller, the more powerful. They like that. So Prahlad Maharaj tried to tell his father to be submissive to Vishnu. And that did not sit well with Hiranyakashipu. So the more Prahlad Maharaj glorified Lord Vishnu, the more angry and agitated his father became. And that's why he came up with all kinds of plans to kill Prahlad. But all the plans failed because the Lord was always there to protect his devotee. Just like the Lord protected Draupadi when the demons tried to strip her naked in the court of Dhritarashtra, where all the people standing there, all the people sitting there and looking for Draupadi to be humiliated, stripped naked. But he raised his hand, stopped fighting Dushasana, and said, Krishna, hey Govinda, please save me. That's all it took. And Krishna appeared and gave such endless supply of sari that Dushasana was overwhelmed and Draupadi never became naked. So the Lord is always there to protect his devotee. And that's why Prahlad Maharaj glorified the Lord without any feeling of fear. But Hiranyakashipu became very agitated. So all his trials to kill Prahlad did not work. And so finally he asks Prahlad whether God existed within the columns of the palace. Prahlad Maharaj said yes, because he had said earlier that the Lord was everywhere. So then, in a kind of a sarcastic way, God is everywhere, so is he in the columns here? Krishna said yes. Prahlad Maharaj said yes. Because Krishna always protects his devotee. The statement that's made by the devotee to to preach to people about the power and the dominion, the omnipotence of Krishna. Whatever he says, Krishna will make that possible. So then, as he said in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, Kvanteya patijanihi name bhakta panasati. My devotee will not perish. His statement will come true. So when Prahlad said that, yes, he is in the columns, and Hiranyakashipu destroyed the column. And as soon as he destroyed it, then a tumultuous sound started coming out. First, Hiranyakashipu could not see anything but the pillar. But to substantiate Prahlad's statement, the Lord came out of the pillar in his wonderful incarnation of Nrsimha, half lion, upper part lion, lower part man. So half lion, half man. And he roared, and Hiranyakashipu could immediately understand that this extraordinary wonderful Lord, or the Lord, was actually meant for his death. But he thought that he had gotten boons from Lord Brahma, so he could fight this particular personality. So he prepared to fight in the form of half man, half lion. Now he would have known, a part of his brain was actually thinking, this particular personality has come to kill me. That must be Lord Vishnu, because all that my son was talking about is Lord Vishnu. But he has come in half man, half lion, which is not part of the form that Lord Brahma granted as a boon to Hiranyakashipu. Now, it was daytime. Lord Brahma had given Hiranyakashipu the boon that he couldn't be killed by daytime or nighttime, in the day or in the night. So what did the Lord do? He performed his pastimes. After all, he wanted to come to the material world to fight. So during the day, that day, the Lord fought with Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was determined to defeat the Lord, even kill him if possible. Of course, he wasn't going to be able to, but he gave the Lord a good fight, and that's what the Lord wanted anyway. So he fought with the demon. The Lord, Sringadev, fought with the demon for some time. And then when the dusk time came, it's changing to night, not quite night, but it's not quite day, on the border between day and night, that's when Lord Nrsimha captured the demon and threw him on his lap, which is neither the earth or the sea or the sky. And he killed him by piercing his abdomen with his nails, which are not weapons. And of course, Hiranyakashipu, half man, half lion, is not Lord Brahma's creation. So all of the boons that Brahma granted Hiranyakashipu were not violated by Nrsimhadev, and still he killed. As the Prabhupada says, Krishna is the source of intelligence, so no matter what you pour, he's going to be able to do what he wants to do. His supreme will always come through. So he killed Hiranyakashipu. The Lord killed Hiranyakashipu, who was the king of the demons, but also killed many of his followers. When there was no one else to fight, then the Lord stopped. All the soldiers of Hiranyakashipu were dead. Hiranyakashipu himself was dead. And then the Lord sat on Hiranyakashipu's throne. He was roaring in anger. Anger because of what Hiranyakashipu had done to his devotee. So the lesson in it is we have to be careful how we relate. If we offend the devotee may forgive us. The Lord does not forgive us right away. He'll punish us first. Even if we are sincere devotees, we do that, He'll slap our wrists. There will be something happen to remind us we shouldn't be about aparat. But this was a 5-year-old boy, Hiranyakashipu, a huge demon, trying to kill him. So he had really annoyed the Lord very much. Before he came, he was extremely annoyed because of the attempts on his life, on Prahlad's life, that Hiranyakashipu was doing. So he was already very, very, very angry when he came out. Get back at his devotee. Just like when Madai also took a piece of pot and hit Lord Nityananda's head when Lord Chaitanya came to look at it, he was extremely angry and he was actually going to kill both Jagai and Madai right away. You offend a devotee, the Lord gets upset. So we have to be careful not to offend devotees. Anyway, the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, they all approached the Lord. And many saintly persons and other kinds of persons in the different parts of the world, they all came. Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyaharas, Nagas, Maruds, Prajapatis, they all came. Gandharvas. They were going to they all stood in, a little bit of distance because he hadn't seen the Lord that furious. A little bit of distance apart from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they offered their prayers. Now, in chapter 9, they were actually quite afraid. In chapter 9 is typed, Prahlad pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev with prayers. Lord Brahma is the one that asked Prahlad Maharaj to pacify the Lord with prayers, to go to Lord Nrsimhadev. Because they had tried to, but the Lord was still angry. They were hoping that their prayers would change the mood of Nrsimhadev, but it didn't. And so they asked Prahlad, Lord Brahma asked Prahlad to go. Even Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, he couldn't come near Lord Nrsimhadev. So, when Prahlad approached fearlessly, he appeared before the Lotus feet and offered, Lotus feet of the Lord, and offered in respectful obeisances. And the Lord was very much affectionate towards Prahlad. His mood changed. He put his hand on Prahlad's head, and because of being personally touched by Prahlad, just like Lord Hiranyagarbha touched Dhruva Maharaj again. The same thing happened. Dhruva Maharaj was in the forest. But Prahlad Maharaj, when the Nrsimhadev touched his head, then Prahlad Maharaj achieved Brahmagyan, spiritual knowledge. So his prayers were offered to him based on spiritual understanding, infused in him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nrsimhadev. So, this is chapter 9, Canto 7, chapter 9. A summary of his prayers by Prahlad to Nrsimhadev. He said, I'm not proud of being able to offer prayers to you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm not proud of doing that. But I simply take shelter of the mercy of the Lord. For without devotion, no one can appease the Lord. First thing we hear. We have to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and involve ourselves in devotional service. Then the Lord will be happy with us, or we can appease him. That was the point Prahlad was making. One cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead just from having a high parentage and being born in an aristocratic family, or having a lot of opulence, or being very learned, or very austere, penance, mystic power, as we talked about earlier. All of those doesn't please. The Lord owns all of that, so that's not going to do anything to please the Lord. They never please him, but pure devotional service is what pleases the Lord. So we have to strive towards purity, because pure devotional service, although it's said in Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami, it's very rare, but it's not zero. It's rare, but it is achievable. So we always have to be endeavoring towards pure devotional service. Doing devotional service, but devotional service with great attention, being careful about being time conscious, and also not being offensive in any part of it. And if we are, we have to pray for forgiveness. There are special prayers for forgiveness. When the service is not done, some mistakes happen. Mistakes will happen because that's part of the 4 defects of us. So, even a devotee, a non-devotee, person is in a pious level, a Brahmanical level, he can't be dear to the Lord. He's not devoted to the Lord. Some people they're doing prayers to demigods and so on, but they're still classified as Brahmanas because of certain qualities that they have. Sama, Dhamma, Titikha, it's there in Bhagavad Gita 18, chapter text 42. So, that's there, but the person does not become dear to the Lord. In chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, towards the Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 is called Devotional Service. That's the title. But towards the end, there's so many things that Krishna says to be dear, to do, you're going to be dear to him. So an undevotee Brahmana, if it's not even an undevotee, they can't be dear to the Lord. But even a person born in a low family, Chandala, family of dog eaters, if they are following the instructions of the pure devotee of the Lord, and Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord can accept his prayers. So that's the first thing Prahlad was talking to the Shingadev, but also in the sense talking to everybody that's gathered there. So anyway, first he said the Lord is independent. He doesn't need anyone's prayers. But if a devotee offered his prayers to the Lord, then that devotee is the one who benefits greatly. The Lord will be satisfied, but the benefit will come to the devotee. So the standard prayers that have been already composed by the pure devotees, we should definitely live according to those, as many of them as possible. Then our own custom-made prayers too, we can add to it every now and then, as long as it is all about being able to directly serve or indirectly serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We shouldn't be asking for material things. The Lord supplies that, what we need. So, Prahlad Maharaj says, ignorant persons born in low families can therefore sincerely offer heartfelt prayers to the Lord, and the Lord will accept them. We are all born in ignorance. That's Kali Yuga. That's the way it is, except the pure devotees that came from the spiritual world to try to help us out. Everybody else is in ignorance. Oma Gyanati Mirandasya. Agyan. We're born in ignorance. So if we offer prayers from our hearts, the Lord will accept them. Some of the standard prayers are also very much from the heart. Caturdasi, Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, their prayers are directly from the heart. So we can even relate to it and use that too. So when one offers his prayers to the Lord, then he's immediately situated on the Brahman platform. Why? The prayers to the Lord, if there's no request for material things, then that's transcendental. And the Lord, and prayers to him, the Lord is absolute. Therefore, the person is immediately situated on the spiritual platform. Brahman platform here means spiritual platform. Prayers without requesting any material things. Material things, believe me, we all say, oh, okay, we don't request for material. The Lord takes care of the material things. He takes care of the birds and the wild dogs, and he takes care of all of those. And they don't offer any prayers to him. He still takes care of them. So this is just a short part of it. Of course, Prahlad Maharaj prayed even longer, but this idea of the importance of prayers, what we wanted to stress here, and that's why we pulled this up. So we're going to wrap it up. The Shingadev appear for the benefit of all human society, not only for Prahlad Maharaj, he's for everybody. Do not go to Lord Ganesh for protection. Lord Ganesh is disciple true enough of Lord Nrsimha, but Lord Nrsimha came to protect his devotee. So there's a direct connection between us and Lord Nrsimha. That's why we have the Shingadev's pranam. Namaste Nrsimhaya Paladardayane Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Siratankana Kalaye. We say it every time. So, the fierce form of Lord Nrsimha may be most awful to an undevotee, but when the devotee sees Lord Nrsimha, he sees one thing: protection and affection. So we are very fortunate in that way. So when we take full shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, we can be saved from the onslaught of material nature. Lord Nrsimha will always be there for us. Therefore, every devotee, every living entity should be unattached by the material so-called happiness, and should take shelter of the Lord by all means. That is the mission of human life. We will be happy when we take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God. Taking shelter means obeying His instructions and living to satisfy the Lord's senses, and for that matter, the senses of devotees and Guru. So we'll stop here I know there will be some wonderful celebration later on this afternoon. It will be in Harrisburg also, as it will be in Philadelphia, and practically all the temples in this country and around the world, depending on the time zone. So thank you again. So this is the time. Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. It is said even now, in our situation with the bodies that we have, that when a woman is pregnant, the baby is up to 7 months. 7 months, the brain waves are all established and they can actually hear even from the outside what's going on. Yeah. So when the body Matajis get pregnant and you come to the temple, through your pregnancy, be around kirtan, bhajan, lectures, those kind of at home and also in the temple. The person goes, I heard all of that, discuss Krishna consciousness, make sure that you don't say things that are negative and vile because the child is hearing everything. So, the baby can hear all of this. So we have to be very much aware of that. People who aren't and they get pregnant, they're just karmis and they're all in all kinds of situations with the modes, especially passion and ignorance. And then I know one situation where a mother, she got pregnant, she had a child, and one time I was on the phone with her, she's not a devotee, and she was very, very amazed about some words, literally street language words that the child used when she was very little. She learned to speak, speaking like that. And the mother was shocked and said, I didn't teach you that. Little did she know that from 7 months on, the child in the womb had been hearing everything they've been talking about. So he came out and was saying the same thing, and he shocked them. How much ignorance people have now. So we're very fortunate to hear all these little things that even we take for granted that we know. But the majority of people in the world don't know. That's so funny. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai glory to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Any comments? Other comments? Anybody want to ask a question? You can. If there isn't, then we have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Nrsimha Caturdasi. I think there is fasting until dusk. And you do your best. Some people may do complete fast. Some people may do water. They may do a little bit of fruit, and that's it. But some fast till dusk. And then it's supposed to be broken with Ekadashi, but that depends on your temple management and what they do. Okay. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.